We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Carl Rogers, Subcommittee Chair, Appropriations, Economic Development. We got some guests here, and we've only got 2 hours to get through this. And before, we were waiting on some analysts and copies and roll call sheets and stuff. But we got some special guests I know that want to make some comments. And I know Chuck McMullen has Glenn Carroll, who is heading up the Golf Hall of Fame, and Glenn, it's good to see you. You want to come up and approach the mic? Chuck, if you want to come up too. And sure. There'll be some more coming in, so whenever my aide gets back, he'll pass them out. Just,
Mr. Chairman, I guess my first comment would be, who says you can't go home again? So I'm here again in front of the appropriations. I'd like to just take a minute or two and tell you about the progress we're making with the Georgia Golf Hall of Fame. As many of you know, the legislation creating the Hall of Fame was passed in '82, and the Hall of Fame has done a lot of things, created the gardens there in Augusta and all the statues. But over the last 18 months, after we had a change of leadership in the Hall of Fame, we made tremendous progress toward actually creating a museum and a Hall of Fame there in Augusta. We are in need of some additional monies to get us through the next couple of years. Certainly, you have in front of you, I think, a fact sheet describing what we're asking for out of supplemental and also for the FY08 budget. We've been working with the Attorney General's Office and the Georgia Properties Commission on determining our abilities to use some of the additional property that we have there in Augusta on the riverfront in a joint venture with either a public or private entity to build a facility or have someone build a museum for us and endow it for us with minimum, if any, state funds. So we're excited about where we are today. It's been sort of a long haul for the Hall of Fame, but we think that we're headed in the right direction. We've made a lot of progress on expense controls and managing our resources, and we would respectfully ask for some help in the supplemental budget and the 08 budget.
Okay. You might want to add some of your credentials, Glenn. You headed up the Georgia PGA at one time, isn't that
Well,
correct?
I've been, unfortunately, I'm old, Mr. Chairman, and I've been around a long time. I've been around. I worked for the CNS Bank and Nations Bank and Bank of America until I retired and went over, and Governor Perdue asked me to come and run the Department of Economic Development. I did that for a year and a half, and yes, I've been involved with golf pretty much with the USGA and the Georgia State Golf Association and the PGA for a number of years, and I guess that's why the governor felt that the Hall of Fame would be something I'd have an interest in, and it's been a challenge, but we're making a great deal of progress, and we're excited about where we're going to be in another year or two.
Okay.
I'll be glad to answer any questions if anyone has.
Anybody have any questions? Now, the Golf Hall of Fame is in place, correct?
The Golf Hall of Fame board and the Golf Hall of Fame is in place. Two primary objectives and missions. One is to recognize and honor inductees into the Georgia Golf Hall of Fame. We currently have 75 members. 3 members were inducted earlier this month, Furman Bisher and a couple other people. Furman's been writing about golf for 56 or 70 years. But we have 75 members that have been inducted. Our responsibility is to honor those, recognize them, and honor those, and also to run and operate the gardens and the future museum that we're proposing we will build there on the waterfront, on the riverfront in Augusta.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Representative Forrester.
Thank you for coming today. Currently, how or is there any other means of funding for the Golf Hall of Fame and the Botanical Gardens? It says here 165,000 visitors annually.
Some of those are paying members. Some of them are. There's an educational part of the gardens. Until we get the museum finished, our ability to be self-sufficient is probably not going to be there. So that's why we're so anxious to get on with that. We generate about $350,000 in revenue above and beyond what the state gives us currently. We're hoping that as we go through the next few years, we will increase that amount that we're generating. We fully expect to be self-sufficient at some point.
Is that from paying for parking or a $3 pass for the garden walk?
We have special events in the gardens that we charge for. We've just completed a new putting experience. It's built around the 18 of the most widely known holes in the state of Georgia, Sea Island or Augusta or whatever. We think that'll generate. We've done the pro forma. We think it'll generate a fair amount of revenue. We're looking kind of under every rock to be sure that we're doing what we're doing. But until we can move ahead with the museum itself, it's hard to get people off I-20 just to come down to the garden. But I think if we had the real museum there, would be able to generate a lot more revenue.
And this has been since 1982?
It was formed in 1982. The legislation was passed in 82. Basically sat around for about 15 or 20 years. We inducted the first group, I think, in 87 or 88, but that's been the primary area of activity and not doing the development there on the river.
Thank you.
Further questions? Anybody? Okay.
We appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being with us. Good to see you again. Some other special guests, and our analysts are beginning to funnel in. Barry White, who's chairman of Tourism Alliance. Barry, you want to go ahead and speak briefly, if you would? And I have somebody else I promised, and I can't remember who it was. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Barry White, and I'm the volunteer chairman of the Tourism Development Alliance of Georgia. And that's a private group that works in partnership with the Department of Economic Development and the Tourism Division and representing the private sector. And we're excited about working with the new commissioner and enhancing our current relationship with the Deputy Commissioner, Dan Rowe, as we move forward. I also want to just say thank you to Glenn Cornell. Obviously, the Golf Hall of Fame in Augusta is very important to us there, as well as we think the significance it has around the state is also tremendously important. Just to, again, say that we are here and in working partnership with the department, and we appreciate the enhancements that the governor's included in his budget for tourism-related projects. That's it.
Stay right there if you will. Anybody have any questions for him? No one? Thank you for being with us, and we'll have some other meetings you can attend as well. Good, thank you. That was Kathy Hodge with the Georgia Voyager, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Kathy, you want to come up front here, and if you got any more handouts to give to the members,
Go ahead and hand them out before
give them to Rob or
Okay.
or her, and
Yeah, I've been carrying these around the tackle. It gets a little bit heavy,
yeah.
so I'm glad to get rid of it. Yeah, just let them see it there.
I was going to tell you, I saw Dr. Louise McBee last night and asked her if she was going to be here. She said she couldn't make it, and former representative for the committee. So anyway,
Dr. McBee is a member of my board and has
Okay.
guided me
okay,
through the educational aspect of the Georgia Voyager for
okay,
a long time. So
okay.
I'm
We
glad she
handed
did.
out, and I pulled them back in last week. The booklets that you had done. So some of the committee members, I don't know, Representative Lucas, I don't think was here. He may not be familiar with it. So go ahead and say what you need to say as briefly as you can, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, sir. The Georgia Voyager magazine has been in existence for 11 years. It was designed as a response piece for the Secretary of State's office under Max Cleland, the Department of Industry, Trade, and Tourism, and the Department of Education during the Olympics. It was a response piece for students and teachers visiting the Capitol, as well as a family informational guide at visitor centers. At one time, it was part of DOE's budget when there was an innovations program that every school system received a set of these until something happened with that appropriated funds when the superintendent ran for governor. I'm not going into that. But anyway, it took a lot of that federal money. Every issue, what we look at, and I think Representative Coleman can vouch for this as well, is that we look at the new curriculum in the state of Georgia and match each of these stories to what they're studying in schools. So when you see a story in the little magazine, there are activities and information online that matches those for further learning. So the whole program is designed for high interest for heritage education and Georgia history. So we are asking for additional funding to supply these publications to the Capitol Tour Desk, as well as to visitor centers at state lines. Dorothy Olson told me to quote her as saying the least that she could use of these, and they need them very badly, is 1,000 every quarter. So we do them 4 times a year. We theme them according to the curriculum with Native American, colonial, voting. I had the new, I was hoping I would have it to show you today, of Georgia's newly elected officials and new laws. It's not coming in until tomorrow, so we missed it by 1 day, but it has Governor Perdue, Casey Cagle, and Karen Handel's picture on the cover with the information on the new laws that the legislature passed that affect students as far as driving and those kind of things. So we try to take as pertinent information that's going on in Georgia and share it with students visiting the Capitol as well as visitor centers. Any questions?
Anybody? Questions? I know you're asking for $150,000. That's only for the printing and shipping of the books?
That's for the for 1,000 quarterly to be sent to the Capitol as well as to visitor centers at state lines.
Okay,
so that
at state lines.
So that would be, there's 11 visitor centers, so that would be $12,000 per quarterly. So you'd get a fall, winter, spring, and summer. And then that would also cover shipping and handling.
Okay. The hardback book that you gave me, I didn't bring it with me.
Do you want me to I've got a copy of it.
Yeah, why don't we show it while you're here? Some of the members have already seen it. Kathy, did you say 12,000 a quarter? Is that what you said? Your publication? Okay. So
this is out of doing 11 years of the magazine. I took stories from those and when I lost total government funding after Ms. Shrinko left, I combined a lot of information and put it into a total book on Georgia history from the beginning to the end. And I had a lot of help. President Carter gave me stories to republish some of his books. Senator Miller gave me information from his books. Interviews with John Lewis and Andrew Young helped to teach government to the students. So I'm very proud of the book that we
Now, how do students access that book?
This book, actually, the magazine and the book has gone through a double-blind study and has been approved by the Department of Education to go into the hands of school children. I don't know of another publication that has gone through that much scrutiny. So I am on the list that's why Brooks couldn't help me, is because I'm on the education list for them. that they are, that I have been approved by the Department of Education to be purchased as one of the Georgia History.
And you had funding before through DOE and didn't get it because of a problem?
And through tourism. I was, at one time I had funding through the Department of Tourism. I was their educational consultant.
Okay.
And then all the funding's changed. So former Representative McBee has seen a lot of validity in the work and the things that I do, and has been sort of a cheerleader for history and for the information. One sidebar is that we do a Georgia Heritage Tourism Essay Contest with students all over Georgia, which is funded in part by Brunswick and the Golden Isles Tourism Bureau and Sea Island Company. And we receive over 8,000 essays a year, and the governor hands out the awards. So in the magazine, we try to publish students' essays and increase enthusiasm to make them better writers as well.
Okay.
So that's part of the program that will always be in the magazine.
All right. In our meeting, you mentioned you didn't have time to sell ads because you were writing all the time.
No, I do sell. I mean, I can sell some, but there are so many other pieces out there in competition for advertising through the tourism budget that unless an area has a lot of place for study tours and has money for those museums, they don't have money enough to advertise. So, I mean, there's no way that advertising could pay for this publication.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Chairman Smith, you have any questions?
No, we're on a separate issue. We're on an issue before this one.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy, for being here.
I will share a book with Chairman Smith.
That'd be good. He's a big history buff. So.
So hand that to him and tell him.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. I think I have somebody else I promised. Who else was it? Okay, yeah. We'll go ahead and start with soil and water. I think Brent's here. Come on up, Brent. Briefly, please. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we're still on 07 amended, is that correct?
We are. We'll start 08 Monday and Tuesday.
We didn't have any proposed changes in 07 amended. Unless y'all have something question-wise, I'd be glad to answer that.
I move do pass.
We're not going to take any action yet. So. Okay. No one has any questions. Representative Hanner, no questions from you? Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. PSC.
My executive director, Deborah Flanagan, is here.
Okay, speak into the microphone, Bill, if you will.
Yes, sir. We had the governor recommended money for the money for GBA increased rent, and we asked for another $56,000 for renovations that were not covered in the governor's recommendation. These are basically transfers to GBA.
Right. Any questions from anybody? Do that. Say that again. Yeah. Right.
54 for the rent and 56 for the increased overage on the renovations and
Moving and all that.
moving.
Okay. That's ongoing. You were doing that last year too, weren't you, Bill? Okay.
Yes, sir.
No questions? Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
Let's see. Forestry. Robert, if you can shorten it a little bit. So.
Certainly will. briefing it up, I do want to take the opportunity to bring you up to date on several fires that are occurring up in your neck of the woods.
Right now?
Yes, sir, that actually started yesterday evening, and we've utilized all our resources in the area up there, and currently have moved a hand crew up in the area to assist and have the helicopter making water drops up on Cedar Mountain in Lumpkin County.
You start them on purpose?
No, sir. It was no, sir. We did find ignition sources, and it was arsonists. They were arson fires. And basically, all I've got today is I did bring you some information that the committee requested last meeting, and also wanted to make you aware of the committee and invite them to a conference that we're working with the Forest Service on for tomorrow, where we've got Associate Chief Sally Collins coming down from Washington to provide an overview and review of the Bush administration Farm Bill proposals. And we'll have a conference at the Renaissance Hotel tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and would love to invite y'all and hope you can come attend that. Also, I've included the environmental cab information that you requested.
Yes, sir.
And included the equipment replacement schedule information that you had requested.
Right.
And then also the code relating to the use of retread tires. And that's all, unless you have any questions.
Representative Roberts.
One quick question. The other day, when you were talking about the cabs and all, how many units or dozers did you say that you had that would not be able to be retrofitted with these new cabs?
I don't have the precise number. We've got a total of 340 crawlers. Do you know perchance, Dan?
The best thing would be to move on from this point and go forward.
Come up to the microphone. You're on the internet.
Chairman or Representative Rogers, the best thing would be to start at this point and go forward, because to try and retrofit those tractors that are already in the field would be very costly. It'd be almost twice the figure you're looking at in the handout. So.
Oh, well, but I guess my question back with them would be, we're on a 20-year cycle right now, so you're telling me we're going to be 20 years from now before we ever get these cabs on basically all the tractors?
We can go back.
That's what it would take to equip all of our crawlers. Well, actually a little over 20 years. 20-year replacement cycle is what we're working towards.
How many tractors? How many again?
340.
Okay, 340. So you're looking over 3.6, 3.7 million to retrofit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Talk about the tire issue that I was a little bit concerned about.
Well, I've passed out the code there that requires us to use retread tires on our equipment, both on our engines and on our transports and on our tractor trailers.
Tell me the problems that I heard about, but give me your perspectives of what's going on and what's happening, and committee needs to hear that.
With our particular usage in the woods, working down dirt roads and the areas that we work, and the way we use our equipment, and the by virtue of hauling heavy equipment and heavy loads on our water engines, we encounter quite a few blowouts of our retreads. So we have some problems there, particularly when we're mobilizing resources once again and moving them across state or to assist our sister states. That's when our most frequent occurrence is when we put long distances at one shot on those pieces of equipment.
And they're usually sitting there at a period of time loaded with water or fire retardant?
Yes, sir. Our transports and tractor trailers always have the equipment loaded on.
So we got tractor trailers loaded with equipment and on retreads and.
Yes, sir. And, I mean, we've got to leave the equipment on there and be ready to respond.
Okay.
As well as with our water handling equipment.
Have you had any accidents recently because of them, or I know it's in the rangers' minds that they've got that issue to deal with. So
We have not had, we have one instance of a tire coming off and hitting a private vehicle during the blowout.
but you hadn't lost a tractor off a trailer yet or anything?
No, sir.
Okay. But time is of the essence. If they blow, they have to stop, correct?
Not necessarily. We've got dual, depending on the tire that goes out, we've got dual wheels on those pieces of equipment, so you can continue on as long as the adjacent wheel's in good shape, at least to get to a safe area.
So on a tractor trailer, how many retreads would you have on a tractor trailer? 8?
Right.
Well,
Eight
they're not
on the tail
retreads on the
end.
front, though, are they, Robert?
Not on the steering axles,
Okay.
no, sir.
Question. I've got a bunch of questions here. Okay.
On these retreads, have you tried different companies? Have you shopped around as far as the people that are vulcanizing these tires and retreading these tires?
Yes, sir. We've recently made some changes within the past year. We were warehousing all of our tires, coming through one source, being supplied through one source. We've now outsourced those to the districts and the units where they can purchase those locally. So there are multiple vendors.
Multiple vendors, all right. I've run retreads about 32 years. I run 20 retreads on one tractor trailer, except for the 2 front wheels. I've had pretty good success. We'll talk. I'll give you the name of my company that we buy them from, because, boy, does it save some money. I've run tandem dump trucks with all retreads. We put probably 410 miles a day per truck average on it, and they sit loaded sometimes at night. So I'll be glad to work with you on that. And
We'd like to get that vendor's name from.
right, okay.
One more question. In the past, the first responder trucks that you have had there at the different stations, a situation like where the fire has broken out up here in the northern part of the state, down in the rural part of the state, a lot of times with some of our closings of our places there, some of these guys have to travel long distances. I know y'all have went toward telling them not to drive them trucks home at night. The situation has arose from time to time where that individual has to travel 20 miles back to get that truck to drive to where the fire was at. It was right there by their house, or something had broken out. You're talking about 40 miles round trip. I'm wondering, have you seen any damages or any fires that have really gotten out of hand because of this since y'all went to that?
Well, that is not the policy currently in place. If you're referring to our Type 6 engines, Chief Ranger response, the Chief Rangers do take their vehicles home in the evenings. And then additionally, we base the big equipment, truck, tractors, and crawlers, base that on the fire situation. And each supervisor at that unit makes a decision on whether or not we should move the tractor, trailer, crawler equipment out to the individual's house or another place locally. If it's a high fire danger day, that's a common occurrence for us to take the big equipment home, have our rangers take that equipment home so they can respond more rapidly.
Oh, I know that. Have y'all changed that policy then? Because I know at one time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, y'all have went back. Okay.
Yes, sir. It's been about a year, I guess.
Great, thank you.
All right.
That's it. No other questions. Good report. Thank you for that
Thank you, sir.
information. Chairman Smith, you want to, I don't know if the, Glenn, I think, is already left. Glenn Carroll's still here. Is he gone? Okay. It's okay. Economic Development. Ken Stewart. Just
Chairman, members of the committee. We covered two items that we had on the amended 07 at our last meeting. Would you like me to go over those again, Mr. Chairman? One was the rail spur for the completion of the Kia project, and then the second was the funds for the Civil War commemoration preparation up at Resaca.
Okay. Any questions? Did I ask you this question? I know this is cash, Ken. Why can't we bond this? Why shouldn't we bond it?
I don't know the answer to that. I can pass it on to our expert back here. But I think our bonded money, if I appreciate it right, in OPB and others can straighten me out, though I think we're up to our limit on the bonds at this point.
Is Charlie here with you?
Gina, do you know? It could be with a separate bond.
Rail spur. How about the battlefield? We already committed on that and ready to close on it. Is that the reason it's cash?
I don't know the answer on that.
Can you get us an answer on that, please?
Dan, do you know if we, or do we already own that property?
We own the property, but there is not a visitor center on the site.
Okay. Yeah, the work on the site now goes beyond just the center that's going to be built. It's really developing out the entire property. So there's a fair amount of land work that's going to be done there. As you recall, in the last meeting that we had, I think the question was asked whether or not all of the recovery had taken place on the site. And what we testified to is that a lot of the surface recovery had, but the site was going to be raised, taking it down a certain level so that the balance of the artifacts could be recovered. So that'll end up being part of it as well. And to my knowledge, none of that has started, obviously, since this has not been approved.
Question. So we've already acquired the property. Is that correct? Okay. What did we pay for it, Dan? I don't even remember what we paid for it. Former Representative Snow may need to answer this. I don't know.
I'm not sure what we paid for it. We can find out. But the $5 million in the supplemental budget is also for the planning for the commemoration, which is in addition to the development of the Resaca site. But Chairman Rogers, we will get the number from our friends at DNR and what we paid for the land in 2000.
If we can bond a rail spur, we may consider that, Ken. So
Okay,
anyway.
we'll look into that.
Okay.
And get you a response back
Okay.
offline. We'll do.
Please. Any other questions from anybody? Okay. Thank you for being here. Community Affairs. Commissioner Beatty couldn't be with us today, so we've got Phil Foyle. Isn't that right, Phil?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Other than the handful of changes that we had, Commissioner Beatty, I think, explained those the other day, but we'd be happy to take any questions that the committee might have, or if you need further explanation, I can do that too.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? Let him look at it just a second.
Sure.
So. That's on GFA. We'll call him that. Toward the environment. Yeah, we've got a director here for you. No questions? Okay.
Sure. On section 16, the HB 7A, where the tobacco funds are shown.
Yes.
What's the breakdown on that? Where these are going to be used?
The tobacco funds, the $47 million,
yes, sir,
is a pass through to One Georgia.
Pass through.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Greg.
Yeah, I know.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. 16.14 payments to GFA through DCA. We are attached to DCA for administrative purposes. The very first item is the $50 million for land acquisition for critical habitat preservation. The second item is $1 million for reuse of wastewater treatment projects.
Okay. I have a question, Greg. A lot of communities, I know in the past, have raised private money, through a local option sales tax. Are we going to put any parameters on that? Example, I know there's a big tract in Paulding County that we're focusing on. I'm not, but someone else is. And I know there's been some private money raised in that area and some Fed money.
That's correct.
Are we just going to we're going to have, is this House Bill 98? What's the name of the committee? I can't remember the committee we formed in House Bill 98. The governor's bill I asked you about.
Georgia Land Council.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Are we just going to write them a blank check and without any participation at all?
No, sir. The way it's set up now, and obviously GFA serves as a fiscal agent. DNR serves as the technical reviewers. But what we have in the decision-making model is a weighted criteria. And 1/5 of that 20% is the amount of leverage and other sources that are brought to the table.
1/5?
1/5, 20%.
Okay. What if we raise that bar? Would that cause any complications?
Well, every deal is different. We wouldn't want to miss out on a significant piece of property because the community can't meet whatever stated ratio.
Have we not already identified some of the properties?
We've identified the Paulding Forest Tract.
Yeah.
The others, we've identified areas of the state where we know there's what we call priority projects or priority lands that we anticipate becoming available fairly soon.
Okay. So cities or counties or environmental groups have approached you or approached the governor or the...
Well, we have actually two pots. We have the federal clean water SRF that we administer, and that's a loan program that's primarily for cities and counties.
Right.
As well as a $5 million pot that was in the 07 for cities and counties.
Right.
This particular pot is for big tracts, large tracts that have that, again, significant value. There's nothing stopping a city or a county or any number of entities from working together. Partnership is critical to all of these projects.
Sure.
I think it's expected by the other partners that there will be a match. I just think setting a parameter beyond what's already established, we may miss out on some opportunity.
Such as?
I mean, if we said everybody has to have a 50% match, then for whatever reason, what if a piece of property or community working can't come up with the match?
What if we put 25% of the $50 million with some type of Fed or local match where they've raised local money? Would that be a detriment to the blank check that the governor wants to write?
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily a blank check. Again, within the rating criteria, within the decision-making model, we look very closely and make sure there is some degree of participation. I mean, partnership is critical. I believe each project that has gone forth so far, not just with the GFA funds, but some of the private money, obviously there's multi-level, a number of people coming together, groups coming together in order to make this happen.
And that can be any group, city, county,
correct.
Environmental group, or whomever it might be.
That is correct.
Okay. We have some questions. Chairman Smith.
The $1 million for incentive grants for that treated wastewater, have we had projects in the past that have been successful? Do you have a couple of those examples, and do we have some on the drawing board now?
I am not aware of projects that we've had in the past. This particular pot is incentivized to get to that level. I know that EPD has established what is called a red zone, and that's on the coast. So that's where this is sort of intended to.
So we hadn't had any formal request by somebody yet, but
I know that Dr. Carl Couch talked with the governor about this particular program, but in terms of specific projects, there are probably some communities who, have their name in the hat or want their name in the hat or saying, choose me first. But, other than trying to target this to communities within that defined red zone, I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
Thank you. Greg, I appreciate your comment. I have a question on the purchasing of green space and conservation, and of course we all know that we're all in favor of that. We like walking in the parks, but I do have some concerns long term when we take a county and set aside 3,000 or 4,000 acres and we as a state help them purchase it and permanently remove that property from the local tax digest, because we're not making up the difference. And then what we've also done is we create the burden on the local government to maintain and take care of that property forever. And has anyone done any studies to show what economic impact that it's going to have on a community to take on the burden of maintaining, developing, running a facility that is never going to turn a profit? I don't think there's a single facility for entertainment we have in the state of Georgia that turns a single profit, and they're not supposed to, apparently. But long-term economic impact on a small government could be devastating, even though it sounds really good on the surface.
I'm not aware of any particular studies. I'm going to look to my colleague, Kurt Soper, who can bring to bear as the Land Conservation Program Director. But there are any number of benefits as a result of, obviously, the green space, and not just the feel good, but the quality of life issue.
Thanks. My name is Kurt Soper. I'm the Director of the Land Conservation Program. And in response to your question, one thing I would say is the program does encourage the use of conservation easements as a method to achieve land conservation. And in that scenario, the property does remain in private hands, does remain on the tax rolls. And to date, of the 24 or so projects that the program has worked on, about 8 have been done through conservation easements. So those properties are still on the tax rolls. About the only thing that doesn't do is that it generally doesn't allow for public access and use on those properties. So that's kind of one downside to that. The only thing I would say is that we mentioned the Paulding Forest project. I know that the county commissioners up there are actually interested in having that property be green space, partly because they're concerned about the cost in the long run to the cities and the counties for developing the kind of infrastructure you need should the property become developed, and to have to develop and maintain that. So that was one of the reasons that they thought it was worth more to them as a green space for public use than perhaps what might happen if they didn't do that.
Okay, thank you.
Further question I have, none of this can be bonded, correct? I have been told it can't be bonded. It has to be cash.
I believe it has to be cash. So you can have a ready source today, tomorrow, as soon as it's approved.
Can you verify that for us, Greg, to make
Okay.
sure of that, if you would?
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck McMullen, I know Glenn's already left, but Chairman Smith has some questions about the Golf Hall of Fame, and if you'll approach the...
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
Now, I was just looking here, explaining the handout down there. So, of those 3 Hall of Fames, you've got a total of $1.6 million. The Golf Hall of Fame's budget is 3.6% of that, or $58,685, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, in the supplemental request, the request is for $300,000.
Yes, sir. That's accurate.
And then when we get to the 08, it'll be $500,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was looking up here, the maintenance cost on maintaining the gardens is the biggest cost, 58%, $501,000. Is that manpower, machinery, or what is that $500,000?
That's actually the salaries of the 3 crew members that take care of the gardens.
Yeah.
That's the equipment, the seating, everything associated with the maintenance of the gardens, including staff.
Okay, and how many acres are in that garden area? Do you know?
I do not know, sir, but I'll find out and get back to you.
It's big.
Okay, thank you. I just
Yes, sir.
wanna
Thank you.
make sure
I'll get back that.
wanna make sure I had that right. Okay.
Specific acreage. Yes, sir.
Okay. Representative Lucas.
Yes. What is the membership requirement in the Golf Hall of Fame? If you don't know it,
I do not know.
Can you get me
Yes, sir, I will.
information and stuff?
Yes, sir, I will.
Right.
I know that I would not be offered up for induction if you've ever seen me play golf.
Well, I would assume that you have to have done something in golf to make
Yes, sir.
a-
Yes, sir. One of the 3 inductees this past year was actually a writer, a golf writer, so it's not just specific to golfers. I know that anyone who's had a big, significant impact on the game of golf, specifically in Georgia, is eligible. But I'll get you the specific requirements, sir. Thank you.
You may, Representative Lucas, you may be amazed, but Chuck and his firm are doing this pro bono, so they're not charging to represent the Golf Hall of Fame, which is very unusual.
I assume down the road when they get some money, they have to look at you, don't they?
I just hope to maybe become a better golfer by being around all those good golfers.
He's looking for a free lesson.
I can give you that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, agriculture. Tommy? You don't have to say a whole lot, Tommy. I was going to let your Dr. Lee Meyer speak more than you, if that's okay.
As I left you last week, I misstepped down the foot of the steps leaving this building and injured my left foot. So I've been hobbling ever since. Let me mention one thing. You know, I'm a constitutional member of the Georgia Finance and Investment Commission. And I'd like to pledge to you and your committee, if you see the wisdom of converting into bonds, you have my support. I'll have a vote on that commission. I think it will give you some opportunity to loosen up a little money, and I think that's probably what you're thinking about. And I don't know too many things that can't be done by bonding, and the good interest rates you get now, sometimes it's advisable to do that, especially for capital A projects. So get that 2 cents worth in, and tell you, we're always interested in you buying green space or development rights off of land to create green space. I think that's a wise investment in that field. We've taken a very interesting part in that as your Department of Agriculture, and we strongly support your efforts in that field, as we have supported the governor in his initiative of getting that off track. I say I'll be here to answer any questions that Dr. Myers cannot answer to you. I think she's, I think, probably aware of what you want to talk to her about. I will say this. Since we were here last week, we have an absolutely deplorable situation taken in one of our counties south of here, dealing with livestock, horses and cattle, dogs, animals, and we're trying to wrestle with that. It's causing a tremendous amount of misery and a tremendous amount of media attention. I don't know where you saw the TV last night. It'll probably be on again tonight, and where you saw it in today's paper, what we're doing, but we're stretched to the limit in that field. And I will tell you that in the governor's recommendation for next year, we'd asked for some additional staff in that area. He did not recommend. So we may talk to you later about that when we come back for next year's budget.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, we got a question. Representative Forrester.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here, Mr. Commissioner. Now, last time you said there were 40 or 140 positions not staffed?
We went through a series of 3 years of cut. And money was taken from our budget, no other place to get it except out of personal services. So what we've had to do is have a trimming, and we had a period of time when we could not fill, even some cases, a critical vacancy. We had to leave it vacant to create money to cover the budget during those periods of cut. So it created a situation where we really have 140 positions in your Department of Agriculture that are authorized, but none of those are funded.
So unstaffed and unfunded.
That's correct.
And you have how many?
140.
I mean, how many otherwise in?
Out of a period of roughly, we have roughly about 700 on staff today that are funded.
700 funded.
We've been really squeezed. I haven't complained. Some people may have criticized me for not crying wolf But I realize when you don't have money, you can't spend it. We want to do our part to try to help you balance the budget in the previous years. But times are better now, and I would hope that since times are a little bit better, we could get a little of that back to where it was squeezed out of our budget.
And on average, these 140 positions, an average annual salary?
All fields. Some of them might have made as little as $16,000 a year. Some of them might have been up as high as $65,000 a year, like a state veterinarian. We're having extreme difficulty in recruiting veterinarians for our department because they say our salary is so far below the medium range in the private sector. We just can't find anybody to take a job when we really desperately need them today.
So, an additional monies to the Department of Agriculture of $500,000 would only get maybe 10 positions.
Did we give an exact? I think it was 5 positions, weren't it? That's for a full year. We asked you in supplemental to give us 1/4 of a year.
Yeah. And
you'll annualize it in next year's budget. That would be 5 positions. And the expense of their travel and their fringe benefits, I think the fringe benefits of most employees now around 35, 38%. So anytime you have a salary, you have to add that much to it to make it balance.
And that was 50,000. Was it 50,000 or
58,000?
58,000. But that was for the first quarter.
Yeah.
No, not for the first quarter.
For the rest of the year.
For next year. What was the quarter figure?
57,199 for the Homeland Security position.
That's Homeland Security position.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's
two different issues.
Okay, so if we do go forward and do the bonding, money's available. That $6 million is available for other positions? Mr. Chairman, this is a question for you.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to ask the Commissioner. I said, and I don't mean this derogatory, but I know, how many governors have you served under, Commissioner? I know.
Well, I came on Hill with a fellow named Marvin Griffin was governor.
But not as Commissioner, though, right?
I was Commissioner of Agriculture. No, I was a member of the House.
Okay.
In 1957.
And you were Governor Maddox as Chief of Staff.
I was his Chief of Staff. As most of you are aware, I brought Zell Miller into state government. You know that name. I think it's a pretty famous name now. And I've been around. I worked with every governor since Marvin Griffin in some capacity. And I've been your Commissioner of Agriculture now for 38 years.
Okay. That leads me to another question. Don't take me the wrong way. I know I mentioned that letter that you wrote back in October asking for a 12% pay raise for your employees in the department. But the former governors you served under, did you send them the same letter that you sent out the previous, how long have you been there, 42 years?
I have concentrated in trying to do things to help my staff ever since I've been commissioner.
Yeah.
And I'll have to be the first to admit to you I haven't been nearly as successful as I thought I ought to be. I'm never able to convince you to do the things that I think we need. The 12% will not bring us up to the medium. It'll keep us far below the medium. The merit system tells us now to send them a list of things that they will probably recommend to you in our next year's budget dealing with the medium. And I think it'll be more than 12% of those that qualify. They're going to force us to kind of stagger it in. And I tell folks, when you get into that and you got the same classes and you raise one division within that class, 15 or 20%, and you leave somebody else behind, you're going to have a lot of bitching and growling. It ain't going to be easy to accomplish, but we'll have to do it if that's the way you want us to do it.
Would you consider yourself kind of thrifty like me, and sometimes?
I've been accused of being stingy.
Have you really? Well, that's why you were raised. I mean.
Well, I felt like that I had an obligation to be as prudent with your money that you appropriate to us as I am my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to practice that.
So you're not blaming this administration. You're blaming all of them that you've served under.
Matter of fact, as I told you in my opening remarks, that Governor Perdue this year, it's been better to us than we've had in a long time. But we're going to ask you for a little bit more than what he gave us because we think we desperately need it.
Well, we need to get your employees off food stamps. How many employees you got on food stamps?
I asked him to give me that figure. I would figure that just offhand it'd probably be as many as 100 to 150 of our employees that are getting food stamps today.
Out of 800 and something?
Out of 700.
700, okay. Okay.
It's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. You got another question? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for inviting us back.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to ask the former Representative Mike Snow, who's working for the Ag Department, to come up and introduce Dr. Lee Myers. Yeah. Dr. Myers, he was in my office and wouldn't turn me loose until, well, I should correct that. He would turn me loose, but...
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate being here and seeing some of my former colleagues here today. It's always a pleasure to have some very good moments. Almost 20 years over here, and I do appreciate it. And by the way, I'm not on food stamps, Mr.
But you do.
But nearly. That's correct. I'm nearly. But anyway, I'm here to. We have a. I want to. Cameron Smoke, he's retiring today. He's worked with y'all for the last 33 years, and I just wondered if y'all had a minute of record.
He looks younger than you.
Be honest, he is a lot younger.
Is he?
But
he wasn't a public servant like you worked for 20 years.
Well, no, he's been a great public servant. He certainly has. But I do appreciate being here. And by the way, you're talking about Chickamauga, the Battle of Chickamauga, what my expertise was in, Mr. Chairman. Not Resaca, but Resaca is a great battlefield, and I wish y'all would consider them.
Before you introduce her, you have some questions. Representative Hanner wanted to ask you a question. Okay. Okay. Representative Roberts.
As you always used to ask me, would your mama be proud of what
My mama would be proud of the Department of Agriculture if she were, and the job that they're doing. We've got some great people and great staff folks, and I've been very more than proud to work with them in the last couple of years, Mr. Chairman. My mama would be proud.
And he didn't have to buy his apartment in town. He inherited it from his wonderful brother.
Well, but I'm having a hard time paying my property taxes. But anyway, Vance, I'm just real proud to see you again, Mr. Forrester. But anyway, I'll get around to...
Wait a minute, you got another question here. Representative Forrester?
He actually asked my question, but have you contacted your representative about your property taxes?
I really don't know who my representative is.
Okay.
Nan Orrock. I thought it was Nan Orrock.
She went to the Senate.
Well, I understand, but I thought she was my senator, and she told me the other day that she was not my senator.
I sing with her sometimes on Wednesday, so I'll let her know.
You sing with her Wednesday nights still?
Yes.
Okay, sir.
I was going to take a poll. How many of y'all think that former Representative Snow looks like a Mennonite now, since he's grown a beard?
Well, I've turned into a Mennonite Republican almost. But anyway,
go ahead and introduce Dr.
Yes, sir.
We'll get more serious.
Well, we have our state veterinarian, Dr. Lee Myers. She's one of the most formidable folks I've seen in that particular line of work. She does a great job over there. She's been real busy the last couple of days, as the commissioner told you, with the problems we've got down in Pike County. But I want to introduce her. She's doing a good job, and she's got some requests here. I wish y'all would consider this as a very important item in all seriousness.
And she's the expert.
She is certainly the expert in this field, and I want to introduce her at this time, Dr. Lee Myers. She's from up in Commerce, I believe.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
You kind of heard a response. I'm not sure I understand what's happening in Pike County. Can you give us a brief?
Yeah. There's something in the paper about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Be glad to.
And Mr. Chairman, he didn't tell you, but she's a Republican.
Really? And you hired her?
Of course. I want to bet.
She's not a Mennonite.
You can imagine, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. Snow certainly livens up our legislative meetings every morning. Thank you. I'll be glad to update you on Pike County. We're working with Pike County Sheriff's Office down there on a situation that the Commissioner says is the most deplorable he's seen during his term of office, which you know is a long time. There are several hundred animals down there, both cattle, goats, horses, dogs, that are literally starving to death. So we're working closely with Pike County to address the issues. Our first and foremost priority is to assure that those animals are taken care of in the immediate term, but also working with them to develop a solid case to move forward. One of our challenges in dealing with that, however, same as Pike County, is resources to deal with that, both to take care of the animals, what they need with food, water, and veterinary care, and then also the personnel to oversee, because that many animals takes quite a lot to feed, especially in the shape that they're in.
Is it an individual that owns these animals?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is an individual, and I see Representative Crawford's in the back of the room, and he's very much aware of the situation. It's actually in his district, actually a neighbor, so he's very much aware of the situation. So yes, they are owned by an individual. So, Mr. Chairman, I guess we come before you to talk about the funding request for a division of Ag and Food Defense. Just briefly, we've been very engaged in Ag and Food Defense, I guess soon after 9/11. Of course, Ag and Food probably wasn't the first sector you thought of after the incident of Twin Towers, but shortly thereafter, agro-security and the security of our agricultural and food supply quickly rose to the top of the list, because it's very difficult for us to do anything else when we don't have potable water to drink and safe food to eat. So we've been very active since 2003. And our activities have been embraced by the Office of Homeland Security. In fact, you saw the letter here by General Nesbitt. He has assigned a member to the Homeland Security Task Force, and we've been working very closely with both the Office of Homeland Security and the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. Our committee has been multidisciplinary, even though it's been spearheaded by the department. We've been working across a lot of sectors, both the private sector, the university systems, and other state agencies. It's not just the Department of Agriculture. And we've been fortunate to be able to receive some federal funding here and there to help out. Our problem is that we simply do not have enough human resources to oversee a lot of these projects. To date, we've been taking it out of Hyde. In fact, the vast majority of my time is actually spent on Homeland Security and Ag and Food Defense, both at the national level and here at the state, many times at the expense of some of our other programs that you've asked us to do. So we're coming before you now to ask if we could have $57,199 for the first quarter. We feel like that would get us started in some of the activities to continue managing a lot of these projects that General Nesbitt, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Department of Agriculture, Food and Drug Administration, and others are asking us to do, along with all the other states. Many other states have already spearheaded these type of offices in their departments of agriculture, and so we're kind of lagging behind in that area. You heard about some of the vacancies that we have in the department, so we simply don't have the management personnel to oversee. One of the things I'd like to do is ask Sherry, if she doesn't mind, just to hand out this map. This may actually give you a little better idea of what we're trying to accomplish over the state. We really need about a dozen folks to help do this, but all we're asking for is 4 to kind of get us started. This map demonstrates the state that's divided up into GEMA areas, the Georgia Emergency Management Agency areas, and the governor has dedicated resources to try to establish incident management teams, one for each of these 8 GEMA areas. And so agriculture is expected to partner with the governor's initiative for these IMT teams and establish state agriculture response teams that would work hand in hand with these incident management teams. So you can see the 8 there. That's our goal, is to try to establish these with an initial focus in these subject matter areas, but with the ultimate goal of being able to respond to all hazards, whether it be a natural disaster, a food incident, plant, crop, nuclear, animal disease, whatever the case may be, across the state. So this is the capability we're trying to build towards, but we need some folks to help us do it.
Oh, yes, Dr. Myers. What would it take, what is it going to take in the future, next year and down the road, to fully fund this department? I mean, this is probably going to be, in years to come, probably one of the most important divisions of the Department of Agriculture.
I think so. I think what we're looking at to really try to have a minimum staff that can oversee the projects at the local level with local emergency management agencies and some of these planning efforts regionally within these counties. We're looking for one person to be over each of these 8 GMA areas. So we're looking for 8 field personnel and then a staff of 4 in the central office that can go back out in the field and actually oversee some of the grants and funding and liaison, be on the Homeland Security Task Force representing ag and food. I think that would be a wonderful start for us, Representative Roberts, to try to get that going. Now, where it goes from there, we could build upon, but I think to do the job that is expected for us, I think we're going to need 12, but we're asking initially for 4 to get us started.
Thank
you. Dr. Myers, I didn't, Mike Snow didn't tell me what kind of physician you are. Are you just a PhD or a veterinarian or a medical doctor?
I'm a veterinarian, graduated from the University of Georgia. I want to make that clear.
Well, congratulations.
Go Dogs. University of Georgia, and then I have a master's degree from Emory in public health, a master's in public health, and then I'm board certified in the American College of Veterinary Preventive Medicine.
Gotcha.
So my specialty is actually in public health and with veterinary medicine.
Okay. Any other questions? I have one more. I have a lady that keeps calling me from Hall County. I'm trying to think of her name. I can't think of it right now, but I've got it written down in my notes. She keeps calling me about horses next door to her that are not protected during bad weather, and that we as a state or the ag department considers a tree as a shed. And she's very adamant about it. She can't sleep at night because these horses are not covered.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Maybe that'll make you a little sympathetic for the probably 50 calls we've had today on the Pike County situation. Would you like for me to clarify what the...
Yeah,
Can I interrupt this? Today, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution writer asked me that same question. We wish we had an ideal situation, but in many cases, when you have abandoned animals, you have less than an ideal situation. Naturally, we'd like for every animal to be in cover. But sometimes, unfortunately, very unfortunately, the only cover they have might be under trees.
Yes, sir. I think there is a distinction between what the state really expects as far as minimal basic care and then what is ideal. And there are 2 distinct differences. I think what the state requires is different than a lot of people that own horses. Is different care than what we provide our own. The Humane Care for Equine Act does demand basic humane care, including shelter. And as the Commissioner said, many times we'll take a look at the situation, and if there are provisions for these animals to some way get out of the elements, and tree cover can certainly do that, then that goes into our decision-making process.
Well, this lady's name is Emma Jean Gaines. I don't know if she's called you all.
I bet our office is familiar with Ms. Gaines. But I will be glad to call her on your behalf, and we'll address that with her.
Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Certainly, may.
The law says you have to provide animals with
basic provisions, food, water particularly, proper veterinary care, and shelter. And as I mentioned many times, tree cover can be that basic shelter. Would we like every horse to have a barn? Sure. Is it illegal not to? You know, I mean, we're talking about very basic provisions that we don't believe the state requires a barn for every horse. But we do. In fact, horses can survive very well provided they have protection from wind. Wind is a big element for horses to make sure they can get out of as much wind as possible.
Is
and
there
trees.
a difference in a horse and a cow?
There is. As far as provisions, yeah, cattle can do quite well. Their hide is thick enough where they're pretty insulated from the elements, versus horse hide, which is quite thin, really. But as long as they can get out of the wind and they're in good flesh, and once they're malnourished, then they're in a compromised situation. But we try to be reasonable and practical, but make sure that the animals have that very basic care that we know the citizens demand and that you've asked us to do.
Okay. I don't see any other questions or comments, so I was asked Representative Crawford if he wanted to make some comments about Pike County and what he knows, and he wants to address the committee. You don't?
I have no comment. That's my next door neighbor. Holly knows.
Come up and.
How about his mules?
Are your mules in good shape, Representative Crawford?
They don't have a shelter.
They don't?
Tell that woman to call me.
I'm not sure we probably did not tell you some of those horses test positive with strangles. That's a disease that's highly contagious. They have to stay under quarantine.
Oh, really?
You can't just move them anywhere.
So these were just abandoned animals?
No, sir. They're owned by an individual there. So we're working with that individual to make sure that they do everything they can to take care of them. But that's been challenging up to this point. So we're working with Pike County to determine the next course of action.
Just built a home of over 10,000 square feet on this same farm. Leads me to believe he's quite wealthy.
He can't afford to feed them now is his problem.
Many times, Mr. Chairman, having the resources is not necessarily the issue.
Gotcha.
So if that were the case, we wouldn't have a problem in some of the affluent areas of Metro Atlanta, and yet we do. So there's a lot of different reasons, and that's probably for another whole day's discussion.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gary Black with the Georgia Agribusiness. Do you want to make any comments, or okay? Well, good. Glad to have you. Anything else to come before the committee? We will be meeting with DOT and Greta tomorrow at 1 here, and then the commissioner will start the 08 Monday and Tuesday. So, yes, sir. Okay.
That thing doesn't cover wild dogs, does it? Shelter.
Okay. Thank y'all.